He was sitting in the science fiction section of a public library in San Francisco. He was 29 years old. He had a physics degree from the University of Texas. He had studied at Penn State. He had once told his family he wanted to create something that would change the world. He had done exactly that. For 2.5 years, he had run the largest illegal marketplace in Internet history from his laptop. No office, no employees in the traditional sense, no physical store, no product, just a website, hidden so deep in the Internet that most people didn't know it existed. The site was called Silk Road. It had processed over $1 billion in transactions. It had sold drugs to tens of thousands of people in countries across the world. And the man who built it, who called himself Dread Pirate Roberts, was sitting in a library. When the FBI walked in, he was still typing. Ross William Ulbricht was born on March 27, 1984, in Austin, Texas. By every account, he was not a criminal by nature. He was thoughtful, well-read, intellectually restless. He earned a degree in physics from the University of Texas at Dallas. He began a graduate program in materials science at Penn State. He was deeply interested in philosophy, particularly the philosophy of libertarianism, the idea that individuals should be free to make their own choices, that the government had no right to tell a person what they could or could not put into their own body, that the war on drugs was not just a failure, it was a fundamental violation of human freedom. Ross Ulbricht believed this completely. He dropped out of his graduate program. He tried several small business ventures. None of them worked. But the idea that was forming in his mind, quiet, patient, building slowly, was something entirely different. He was going to build a free market, a truly free market, where anyone could buy or sell anything, without government interference, without censorship, without control. He just needed the right technology to do it. The technology existed. 2 tools made what Ross Ulbricht was planning theoretically possible. The first was Tor, short for the onion router. Tor was originally developed by the United States Naval Research Laboratory. It was designed to protect government communications by routing Internet traffic through multiple encrypted layers, like the layers of an onion, making it nearly impossible to trace where the traffic was coming from or going to. By 2011, Tor was publicly available. It was used by journalists, activists, and dissidents in countries with authoritarian governments. It was also, increasingly, used by people who did not want to be found. The second tool was Bitcoin, a decentralized digital currency that allowed transactions to be made without passing through any bank or financial institution. In 2011, Bitcoin was still obscure. Its value fluctuated wildly. Very few people understood it. Ross Ulbricht understood it perfectly. In January 2011, he launched Silk Road. The site was accessible only through Tor. Transactions were conducted only in Bitcoin. The combination of the 2 technologies created something that had never existed before: an anonymous marketplace, where the buyer could not be traced, where the seller could not be traced, where the money could not easily be followed. Ross Ulbricht called himself Dread Pirate Roberts, a reference to the film The Princess Bride, in which the Dread Pirate Roberts is not one person, but a title passed from generation to generation. He believed the name reinforced the idea that Silk Road was bigger than any one individual. Silk Road operated like a legitimate e-commerce platform. Vendors created accounts. They listed their products with descriptions and photographs. Buyers browsed, selected, and purchased. Reviews were left, ratings were given, disputes were mediated. Except the products were illegal: heroin, cocaine, MDMA, LSD, methamphetamine, prescription drugs without prescriptions, forged documents, hacking tools. Packages were mailed through the regular postal system, vacuum-sealed, disguised in ordinary packaging, shipped from sellers to buyers around the world. The site grew rapidly. Within months of launching, Silk Road had thousands of active users. By 2013, it had an estimated 150,000 registered users, 13,000 product listings, and had processed transactions worth over 9.5 million Bitcoin, equivalent to over $1 billion at prices at the time. Ross Ulbricht took a commission on every transaction, typically between 8 and 15%. His personal Bitcoin holdings, accumulated from those commissions, were worth tens of millions of dollars. He managed the site full-time. He resolved vendor disputes. He updated the platform. He communicated with users through a forum under the name Dread Pirate Roberts. And he did most of it from coffee shops, libraries, and his apartment in San Francisco. Law enforcement agencies had been aware of Silk Road almost from the beginning. A U.S. Senate report in 2011 called it an online bazaar for drugs and other illicit goods, and called for it to be shut down immediately. But shutting it down was not simple. Traditional investigative tools did not work. Silk Road had no physical address. Its servers were hidden behind multiple layers of Tor encryption. Its financial transactions were conducted in Bitcoin, a currency that did not require identification to use. The FBI, the DEA, and the IRS Criminal Investigation Division began working together on the case. Undercover agents created accounts on Silk Road. They made purchases. They built profiles. They worked to understand the platform from the inside. They also began the painstaking technical work of trying to identify the real servers behind the Tor network. One key breakthrough came from an unrelated direction. Investigators traced early forum posts about Silk Road to a username, Altoid, which had been used on a drug forum in 2011 to advertise the site in its earliest days. The same username, Altoid, appeared in another forum post on a completely different website, asking for programming help. That post included an email address, rossulbricht@gmail.com. Ross Ulbricht was meticulous, but he had made mistakes in the beginning, when Silk Road was still small and he had not yet understood the full weight of what he was building. The forum posts using his real email address were one of those mistakes. There were others. He had ordered fake IDs through Silk Road to be delivered to an address linked to him, a transaction that was intercepted by customs agents and brought to the attention of investigators. He had, at times, communicated from IP addresses that were not fully protected, and he had kept a detailed personal journal on his laptop, logging the progress of Silk Road, his philosophy, his decisions, his anxieties. Every careful operator's greatest vulnerability is their own record-keeping. By the spring of 2013, investigators had built a strong picture of who Dread Pirate Roberts was. They believed it was Ross Ulbricht. They needed to catch him in the act, logged into Silk Road as its administrator. If they arrested him away from his computer and it locked or encrypted, the evidence could disappear in seconds. On the afternoon of October 1, 2013, FBI agents conducted surveillance on Ross Ulbricht at the Glen Park Branch Library in San Francisco. He was there regularly. The library had free Wi-Fi. He worked there often. That afternoon, 2 FBI agents staged a disturbance nearby, a loud argument designed to make him turn around. In that brief moment of distraction, a third agent moved in and grabbed his open laptop before he could close it or trigger any security measures. Ross Ulbricht was logged in to Silk Road as its administrator. He was arrested on the spot. The laptop contained everything: server access, transaction logs, vendor communications, user data, his personal journal detailing years of running the site. The Bitcoin wallets on his laptop contained approximately 144,000 Bitcoin, worth around $28 million at the time. Silk Road was shut down the same day. Ross Ulbricht was tried in federal court in Manhattan in January 2015. He was charged with drug trafficking conspiracy, continuing a criminal enterprise, computer hacking conspiracy, and money laundering. The prosecution presented the full scope of the evidence: the server logs, the Bitcoin records, the journal entries, the fake ID delivery. The defense argued that Ross Ulbricht had created Silk Road, but had handed control to other operators. The defense also raised questions about the conduct of investigators. 2 federal agents involved in the case were later charged with corruption. The jury deliberated for 3.5 hours. They found Ross Ulbricht guilty on all counts. On May 29, 2015, United States District Judge Catherine Forrest sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was 31 years old. Ross Ulbricht is serving life in prison. His mother, Lynn Ulbricht, has campaigned continuously for a reduced sentence, arguing that life without parole for a nonviolent first-time offender is disproportionate to any standard of justice. The case has divided people sharply. Some believe the sentence is just that Silk Road directly enabled the sale of drugs that killed people. Others argue that a life sentence for building a website, however illegal its purpose, is a punishment that does not fit the crime. The legal and ethical questions his case raises have not gone away. What is the liability of a platform for what its users do on it? How much does intent matter when the consequences are this severe? And in a world where the dark web still exists, where Silk Road's successors continue to operate, did shutting down Ross Ulbricht's site solve the problem it was meant to solve? Silk Road was shut down in October 2013. Within months, new dark web marketplaces had taken its place, larger, more sophisticated. Having learned from the mistakes that brought Silk Road down, Ross Ulbricht built something that could not be unbuilt. The technology existed, the demand existed, the philosophy existed. He simply assembled them first and paid for it with the rest of his life. If this story made you think, subscribe. The next case goes just as deep.